Have you heard of Coral Castle? The modern megalithic structure built by a 5-foot, 100-pound man, working alone under the cover of night. Did you know Coral Castle is linked to Atlantis and rests on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle? Well, buckle up and prepare to have your mind blown. In this video, we're going to unravel one of the most forbidden, overlooked, and mind-bending mysteries ever carved into stone. Just south of Miami, hidden in plain sight behind a modest wall of coral rock, stands a monument that makes no sense. It doesn't belong here, not in this time, not in this country, not with our understanding of physics. And yet it exists. Coral Castle, a name that sounds like a children's attraction. A name that doesn't even come close to capturing what this place truly is. At first glance, you'll see a collection of strange stone shapes. Chairs, gates, telescopes, sundials. Each one carved from blocks of coral limestone, some weighing 30 tons or more. But stay a little longer. Let your senses adjust. What you'll begin to feel is something far older. Something alive. There are no cranes, no pulleys, no signs of heavy equipment. And yet these megalithic blocks have been cut, lifted, rotated, and placed with such impossible precision, they rival the pyramids of Egypt and the stone cities of Peru. Perhaps the most infamous feature of Coral Castle is the 9-ton gate, a slab of coral limestone so precisely balanced on its axis that it could once be opened with the lightest touch. Not only does the sheer weight defy logic for a solo builder, but its function reveals an understanding of perfect mechanical equilibrium. Ed drilled a hole straight through the 8-foot-tall stone, inserted a metal shaft, and mounted it on a truck bearing, yet no one knows how he lifted it into place without industrial equipment. When it eventually failed decades later, a team of engineers using cranes and modern tools struggled to reset it, and couldn't match Ed's original precision. The gate still opens, but it never spun like it did when the man who made it was alive. Coral Castle's blocks, weighing from a few tons to over 30, are stacked without a single drop of mortar, and yet they interlock so tightly that not even a razor blade can slide between them. This isn't just a sign of precision, it's mastery of weight distribution, center of mass, and friction. The way these blocks hold together has kept them standing strong against Florida's brutal hurricane seasons for nearly a century. With no visible signs of shifting, slumping, or erosion, the castle seems to ignore gravity itself, holding its form as though frozen in a moment of impossible intention. One of the greatest mysteries of Coral Castle is the complete lack of mechanical explanation. No cranes, no pulleys, no rigs. Witnesses claimed Ed used tripods and chains, but never saw him move the actual stones. He worked at night, always alone, always behind closed gates. He claimed to use the secrets of the ancients and left behind only a cryptic booklet on magnetic current. When people pried for answers, he spoke in riddles, saying things like, "I know the laws of weight and leverage," or that he used perpetual motion holders. To this day, no one has demonstrated how he moved and set those stones with the technology of the 20th century, let alone by himself. Coral Castle isn't just a pile of stones. It's a celestial machine. Many of its features are aligned with extreme precision to the cardinal directions and celestial bodies. The Polaris telescope, carved from stone, is aligned exactly with the North Star. The sundial is accurate to within 2 minutes of solar time. The observation pit, the moon fountain, and other elements appear to track lunar and solar cycles, making Coral Castle function like a cosmic calendar. This wasn't art. It was astrophysical engineering. Ed built it as though he were reassembling the knowledge of ancient builders, knowledge that modern science only pretends to understand. Coral limestone is not inert. It's a conductor. It's porous, crystalline, and vibrational. Formed over thousands of years from the skeletons of marine organisms, it carries electrical properties and acoustic resonance. In spiritual traditions, limestone is considered a record keeper, capable of holding intention. Coral Castle then becomes more than a monument. It becomes a resonant archive, humming silently with encoded frequencies. The walls are said to distort EMF readings, compasses behave strangely, and some visitors report feelings of unease, dizziness, or even emotional shifts as they pass through. It's as if the stone isn't just holding shape, it's holding memory. The castle was originally constructed in Florida City, but Ed moved it stone by stone 10 miles north to Homestead. Why? He never said. But those who've studied the land believe Ed was dowsing for energy lines tracking underground currents and geomagnetic flow. Coral Castle sits atop one of Florida's subtle ley line intersections, an energetic vein that connects to the Bermuda Triangle just east, and the Bimini Road even further beyond. This node may have offered the conditions Ed needed to activate his machines. Water beneath, magnetism around, frequency pulsing through. It wasn't about location, it was about power. Everywhere you look inside Coral Castle, numbers whisper. The flywheel Ed left behind, believed to be a kind of magnetic generator, contains a series of geometric teeth arranged in patterns of prime numbers and quadruplets. The layout of the castle itself shows relationships to 3, 6, 9, the numbers Tesla said held the key to the universe. Even the angles of drilled holes, the spacing of objects, and the alignment of the stone chairs form triangular geometries that mirror the great temples and pyramids of the world. This wasn't guesswork. It was a numerical spell cast in limestone. Beyond the sundial and Polaris telescope, Coral Castle appears to double as a celestial navigation tool. Markers within the site align with solstices and equinoxes, while others point to specific stars. Some researchers believe Ed encoded astrological transits, possibly even lunar cycles, into the castle's geometry. The entire layout begins to feel like a compass, a clock, and a calendar, all carved into stone by one man who, officially, had only a 4th-grade education. But this wasn't ignorance. This was the language of the ancients, the stars, the seasons, the structure of time itself. Florida is a place of chaos, hurricanes, floods, unstable ground. And yet, Coral Castle has stood without issue for almost a century. No structural cracks, no shifting, no settling, and no restoration ever needed. That alone is baffling for any structure made of interlocked stone blocks. But for one built by a lone man without mortar, it's unprecedented. The engineering is beyond robust. It's organic, as if Ed understood how to make the stones breathe with the earth, rather than fight it. Like a living organism, it absorbs stress and remains intact. In the end, the most mind-blowing thing about Coral Castle isn't a single structure, tool, or alignment. It's the totality. The whole place feels like a puzzle box left behind by another civilization, a monument that doesn't just survive but communicates. Ed never told us how he did it. He never left schematics. He barely spoke of the purpose, and yet he opened the gates every day and let people walk through as if daring them to feel it. Coral Castle doesn't scream. It hums. Quietly. Constantly. It's waiting. It's encoded. And it's never been fully understood, because it wasn't meant to be explained. His name was Edward Leedskalnin, just 5 feet tall, barely 100 pounds, no family, no formal training, no wealth. By all accounts, he was just another immigrant, a Latvian drifter who arrived in America in the early 20th century with tuberculosis in his lungs and a heartbreak in his chest. His fiancée, a girl he referred to only as his sweet 16, had rejected him on the eve of their wedding. Most say Coral Castle was built in her memory, a shrine to lost love. But the deeper you go, the more that story starts to feel like a convenient cover, a distraction, a veil. Because Ed wasn't just a wounded romantic. He was a man possessed by knowledge, by purpose, by something most of us can't name. He never drank, never smoked, never even raised his voice. But he spent over 20 years of his life carving, dragging, and aligning multi-ton stones without help or recognition. He never sought fame. He never sold out. And when asked how he did it, he gave only riddles or silence. He lived alone, slept inside the castle grounds on a wooden cot, ate sardines and bread, and dedicated his days to chiseling and lifting stones that should have crushed him. He allowed visitors, but never truly let them in. People described him as polite but distant, his eyes always scanning, as though measuring something just beyond the visible. He authored 2 booklets. One, Magnetic Current, challenged the foundation of modern science. Ed didn't believe in electrons. He believed that magnetism was the force behind all life, a living current that flowed through everything. He claimed to control it with hand-built devices called perpetual motion holders, primitive-looking coils that he insisted could generate endless movement. No one's been able to replicate them. His second book, A Book in Every Home, read like scattered moral ramblings, but some believe it contains hidden codes. Symmetry and punctuation, mirrored passages, Masonic formatting, perhaps even ciphers. Either Ed was a madman scribbling nonsense, or he was hiding something in plain sight. In 1936, after years of building, Ed packed up every block of coral from his original site in Florida City and moved the entire castle 10 miles north to Homestead. Alone. At night. He rented a truck, but never allowed the driver to watch him load or unload. When asked how he moved the blocks, Ed smiled and said, "I know the secrets of the pyramids." He wasn't boasting. He never explained why he chose the new site, but decades later, researchers began to suspect it wasn't random. In fact, Ed may have been using dowsing rods, copper or iron tools used for thousands of years to detect underground water and earth energy. And where Ed rebuilt his castle, the land was different, still quiet, perfect. He never married, never left. And in 1951, he simply hung a sign on the gate that read, "Going to the hospital." He never returned. He died quietly. No family, no heirs, no explanation. They called him eccentric, a hermit, a lovesick genius. But what if that was the disguise? What if Ed wasn't mourning a lost lover, but rebuilding a lost technology? When Edward Leedskalnin moved his entire megalithic structure 10 miles north from Florida City to Homestead, no one questioned the decision. After all, who questions a man already working with 1,000-pound stones in complete solitude? But that decision, that quiet, unassuming relocation, may be one of the most important clues he ever left behind. Because Ed didn't just build Coral Castle, he planted it, and he chose the soil with purpose. The original location might have been his beginning, but the final site was where his work took root. Ed is believed to have used dowsing rods, ancient tools long dismissed by science, yet used for millennia to detect underground water and subtle energy. Ed didn't guess. He tracked. He tuned in. He moved with the precision of someone listening to something deeper than thought, something humming beneath the ground. And when he arrived in Homestead, something told him, this is it. The current was strong. The silence was right. This was where the earth itself wanted to speak, because beneath Coral Castle is not just soil, it is flowing water, weaving through coral bedrock like a vascular system. And water, especially underground, isn't just for drinking. It is a conductor of charge, of vibration, of intention. It carries current the way nerves carry impulse. Pair that with coral limestone, one of Earth's most reactive crystalline materials, and what you get isn't just a structure. You get a circuit, a device placed on a living wire. Coral Castle wasn't meant to sit still. It was meant to hum. And then come the ley lines. They've been dismissed for decades, relegated to fringe maps and whispered theories. But the truth is, ley lines are nothing more than planetary harmonics, geometric arteries of energy that crisscross the Earth in sacred alignment. They are the invisible meridians of the planet, carrying subtle current just like the human body's own energetic pathways. The ancients knew. They didn't guess. They built on these lines with purpose. Every sacred site, Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, Chichen Itza, Machu Picchu, sits on them. And Coral Castle? It's no different. Researchers believe Coral Castle sits on at least one major ley line, possibly intersecting with others. Its location isn't just good, it's perfect. It lies on a stretch of land threaded with subtle power, connecting it not only to ancient sites, but also to vortex points, electromagnetic anomalies, and even astronomical alignments. This isn't coincidence. This is placement-based physics, the kind the ancients used before steel, before motors, before digital memory. Ed was plugging into something older, and it raises a deeper question. Why do so many megalithic sites, where gravity seems to have been forgotten, all sit on these lines? Maybe it's because ley lines weren't mystical. They were functional. They amplified resonance, they conducted intention. They supported levitation, not through brute force, but through alignment, frequency, and magnetosonic charge. And maybe when you combine underground water, reactive stone, planetary current, and sacred geometry, you don't just build a castle, you build a machine. Zoom out from Coral Castle, and the pattern expands. To the east lies the Bermuda Triangle, that infamous region of space where ships vanish, planes disappear, and compasses spin without direction. But what if the triangle isn't cursed? What if it's charged? Overlaid onto planetary grid maps, the Bermuda Triangle forms a convergence point of ley lines, a vortex node where 3 or more major currents meet and distort. These zones appear around the world: the Dragon's Triangle in Japan, the Devil's Sea near the Philippines, the Wharton Basin in the Indian Ocean, all known for similar anomalies. These are not myths. They are energetic overlaps, just like acupuncture points on Earth's body. Some theorists propose that the Bermuda Triangle isn't dangerous at all. It's a malfunctioning gate, a glitching resonance window left over from an age when the grid was fully activated. And Coral Castle? It sits on the edge of that triangle, not deep within it, but at its boundary, as if Ed knew he had to tap the field but not be consumed by it. Like an engineer walking the rim of a live wire. And just off the coast, beyond the reef, lies Bimini. Submerged beneath the Atlantic, the Bimini Road stretches across the ocean floor in deliberate stone blocks, some weighing several tons placed in right-angled patterns. Many dismiss it as natural formation, but others, those who've studied the energy, the alignment, the sonar signatures, believe it is the last remnant of a sunken world, Atlantis. Edgar Cayce prophesied that Atlantis would rise again, and that its awakening would begin near Bimini. Not in metaphor, in geography. And here's what most people miss. During the last ice age, before the Great Melt and the Younger Dryas Flood, Florida and the Bahamas were connected by land. Coral Castle, right where it stands today, would have been part of the Atlantean plateau. When the waters rose, Atlantis sank, but the tip remained. And Ed's castle? It now stands at the final ledge of that drowned grid, a memory encoded in limestone, holding its place on the map until someone finally asked why. But even the most advanced grid must account for one thing: the sky above it. Because while ley lines are rooted in Earth's crust, the stars move overhead. Earth itself tilts slowly, like a spinning top wobbling over thousands of years. This is the axial procession, a 25,920-year cycle that causes the constellations to shift, the North Star to change, and the alignment of sacred sites to breathe in and out of power. Some nodes go dormant, others flare back to life. It's not random, it's rhythm. The planet itself is tuned, and the sky is the hand that strums it. This is why megaliths were built with astronomical precision, tracking solstices, equinoxes, lunar standstills, stellar risings. The ancients weren't just watching the heavens, they were charging the Earth. Because when the stars cross the grid at the right angles, the planet sings. And when it sings, the stones respond. And maybe that's what Coral Castle is waiting for. Maybe Ed built it knowing that its full function wouldn't be revealed in his lifetime, that it was never meant for the past, but for the next alignment. So he found the line. He tracked the current. He placed the stone. He aligned it to Polaris. And he left it humming quietly, pulsing just above a submerged continent, standing at the mouth of a vortex. And then he walked away. He didn't leave a manual. Because the ones meant to understand it, we, were supposed to feel it first. And so the stage is set. The land was chosen. The grid was aligned. The sky was turning. But all of this, the currents, the placement, The orientation would mean nothing without the right material. The next piece of the puzzle is the stone itself. To the untrained eye, Coral Castle is built from rock, rough, sun-bleached ancient coral limestone. It looks crude, heavy, dead. But Ed Leedskalnin knew better. He didn't just choose this stone for its availability. He chose it for its properties. Because this material, this cold, jagged fossil of ancient sea life, is not inert. It is not dead. It is reactive. Alive in a way we've been trained to forget. And that forgetting may be the very reason we no longer understand how the ancients moved mountains with sound and light. Limestone is found at almost every megalithic site on Earth. That alone should stop us in our tracks. Not granite, not sandstone, not basalt, but limestone at Giza, at Göbekli Tepe, at Baalbek, at Stonehenge, and of course at Coral Castle. It's always there, like a silent witness to some global knowledge we no longer remember. And what is limestone, really? It's compressed life, the crystallized remains of ancient marine organisms, bones, shells, skeletons, forged over millions of years into something that looks like stone, but acts like something far more subtle. Because limestone isn't just hard, it's crystalline. It holds calcite and aragonite, both of which have piezoelectric properties, meaning they respond to pressure, magnetism, and frequency. They vibrate, they pulse, they remember, which is exactly what we find in the human pineal gland, the so-called third eye, a small mysterious organ in the center of the brain, long associated with spiritual vision, altered states, and higher consciousness. Inside the pineal gland, microcrystals of calcite, identical in structure to the ones in limestone. So here's the question. Why is the same mineral used to build temples, pyramids, and stone circles also growing inside our brain? Maybe the connection isn't symbolic. Maybe it's structural, functional, fractal. Because if the universe is holographic, if the whole is reflected in the part, then your pineal gland may be a biological echo of the Earth's crystalline network, a tuning crystal in your skull, and the limestone megaliths scattered across the Earth? Amplifiers, mirrors, resonant bridges. What if limestone is the interface between you, the Earth, and the stars? What if that's why the ancients used it for everything sacred? Because it doesn't just hold form, it holds frequency. And when tuned, through magnetism, sound, or geometry, it becomes active. It responds. It awakens. We've seen this in Coral Castle. Visitors report strange sensations. EMF readings fluctuate. Compasses spin. There are moments, brief, elusive, where the air itself seems to buzz. Like the castle is alive but sleeping, waiting for the right tone, the right sky, the right human to walk through its field and wake it back up. Ed may have known all of this, or maybe he didn't need to know, and because he felt it, he lived inside it, he slept beside it, he chiseled it, touched it, listened to it. Every stone he moved, he first understood. Not mentally, but energetically, like he wasn't building in but collaborating, as though the limestone itself was giving instructions, and Ed was just obeying. Maybe that's how levitation happened, not through brute force, but through resonance. Because when you place limestone, a reactive vibrational mineral, on a ley line over moving water and surround it with magnetic fields, then hit it with the right frequency or field alignment, you're not lifting the stone. You're canceling its inertia. You're unlocking what's already inside it. You're making it remember. And perhaps that's why it was used at Giza, at Sacsayhuaman, at Tiahuanaco, at Coral Castle. Not just because it was durable, but because it was a living material, and they needed the stone to speak. We treat stone like it's dead. But what if the ancients saw it as bone, as nerve, as a language frozen in time? Maybe that's why we've failed to replicate what they did. Because we keep trying to move stone like it's a thing, and they moved it like it was a being. Ed knew, or at least he remembered enough. He didn't write about this. He didn't try to teach it. He simply did it, over and over for years, until the walls could sing without sound, and the castle could hum quietly with its own memory. Because the secret wasn't in the tools, it was in the stone itself. Once you see the castle as more than a structure, once you feel the stone itself as alive, you can no longer view its layout as random. It's not a collection of shapes. It's not a romantic sculpture park. It's a celestial machine. Every angle, every doorway, every carved hole in stone is part of something far older than Ed. Something he remembered, but did not claim. Something passed down, not taught. Because Coral Castle is aligned, not just to the ground, but to the heavens, the first clue is found in the north wall, where Ed carved a precise tube of stone, perfectly aligned to Polaris, the North Star. No matter what time of year, no matter the season, the star can always be seen through it. This is not a telescope. This is a calibration device, a compass of the sky, a sacred axis. Because Polaris isn't just any star, it's the current celestial anchor of our planet's rotation, the one that holds our wobbling axis in place. To align to it is to stabilize your temple to the heavens. Why would a lonely man obsessed with magnetism and Sweet 16 go to such extreme lengths to carve a precision alignment tool to the North Star? Because he wasn't just building a structure. He was tuning it to the cosmic grid. In ancient cultures, aligning a temple to Polaris, or to any cardinal star, was standard. The Great Pyramid, aligned precisely to true north. Angkor Wat mirrors the Draco constellation. Stonehenge, built to track solstices. Coral Castle, built in the 20th century but following the same pattern. And Polaris is more than a dot in the sky. Over 26,000 years, Earth slowly wobbles like a spinning top, a motion called axial procession. Because of this wobble, the North Star slowly changes over millennia. Before Polaris, it was Thuban in the constellation Draco. Before that, Vega in Lyra. Each time the pole star shifts, it signals a new age, a new orientation of Earth's spiritual axis, like the ticking of a cosmic clock. Ed was aligning Coral Castle to the current pole star, as if to say, this castle belongs to now, to this moment in the cycle, but it doesn't stop there. The core layout of Coral Castle reflects something deeper, a kind of stellar compass. Many of the structures, including the moon fountain, the sundial, and the rotating stone gate, appear aligned to astronomical events. Some point to solstices, others to equinoxes, and still others to invisible lines, angles of magnetism, geometry, and resonance. In the center of the castle lies the Polaris telescope, a tall tripod of stone rising above the rest. It resembles a throne, or a sundial, or a pyramid missing its capstone. It's one of the only structures raised above eye level, demanding reverence. Through the carved stone shaft at its top, Polaris can be seen. But here's the thing, Polaris isn't fixed. It's shifting, slowly, quietly, over millennia. So why align something so permanent to something that is slowly drifting? Because the ancients understood procession. They weren't just marking the now, they were preserving the calibration. A snapshot of Earth's axis frozen in stone, so that future ages, long after cataclysms, resets, floods, could reorient themselves using the sky. That's what Ed did. He locked Coral Castle into a celestial time code. He made it a clock that doesn't tick, it waits. A temple that doesn't preach, it points. And Polaris is only the beginning. Because when you take Coral Castle and zoom out, truly zoom out, something else starts to form. A pattern, a global alignment, a resonance between ancient sites across continents. Coral Castle in Florida, the Bimini Road just offshore, the Bermuda Triangle encasing them both, ley lines stretching outward, crossing Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, Easter Island, the same stars above, the same materials beneath, the same alignments, again and again, as if someone or something long ago set up an Earth-wide machine. And Coral Castle, this tiny hand-carved anomaly, was built not to copy it, but to reactivate it. Ed knew, or maybe Ed just felt. Either way, he carved Polaris into stone, as if to say, this is where I stand. This is where Earth breathes now. Let the stars remember. Deep in the heart of Coral Castle, hidden behind the towering stones and whispered legends, lies a relic that modern science has yet to explain. Ed Leedskalnin's magnetic flywheel. To most, it appears unassuming, a rusted contraption with embedded magnets, a simple crank and remnants of old motor parts. But to those who have studied its placement, its structure, and the secrets encoded into its design, it becomes clear. This was no ordinary device. This was the activation key to a lost science. Ed didn't build Coral Castle with sweat alone. He built it with resonance, geometry, and magnetic alchemy. And at the center of it all was this flywheel. The magnetic spiral begins. Ed's flywheel wasn't about motion. It was about rotation of force fields. He embedded magnets into the rim of the wheel in precise harmonic spacing. As the wheel turned, it didn't just spin, it created a torsion field, a twisting inward spiral of scalar energy that doesn't radiate, but collapses space in on itself. It behaves like a vortex in the fabric of reality, a spiral that pulls rather than pushes. This is the field the ancients may have referred to in myths. It cannot be measured by conventional instruments, but it can be felt, tuned, and directed if you know how to listen. Surrounding Ed was oolitic limestone, a porous crystalline stone rich in calcite. This matters because calcite is piezoelectric. When exposed to frequency or pressure, it vibrates and generates charge. But Ed didn't apply brute pressure. He applied resonance. As the flywheel turned, it emitted harmonics, waves that began to interact with the molecular lattice of the stone. When a frequency matches a material's natural resonance, it begins to oscillate effortlessly, like a glass humming to a singer's note. The stone began to shift on a subatomic level. It didn't break, it aligned. Coral Castle wasn't built randomly. It sits on a known ley line with underground aquifers and natural telluric currents beneath. This isn't pseudoscience. These are electromagnetic arteries that run through the Earth's crust. Ed's flywheel began to phase lock with these Earth energies. It harmonized not just with the limestone, but with the ground beneath it, syncing with the planet's Schumann resonance. This created a feedback loop, wheel to stone to Earth and back again. The site itself became a kind of resonant chamber, tuned by the flow of energy beneath it, the magnetism around it, and the sky above. Now the miracle begins. When the flywheel, the stone, and the Earth's field were all vibrating in harmony, something happened. The mass of the stone began to weaken. Gravity isn't a pulling force, not exactly. It's a compression field, a holding pattern created by vibration. When Ed's machine hit the correct frequency, it didn't reverse gravity. It canceled the frequency signature that created the illusion of weight. The limestone didn't float. It simply forgot it was heavy, just long enough to be moved by hand. Ed didn't lift stones. He released them from their bondage to inertia. Once the stone was in a weightless or semi-weightless state, Ed could guide it using harmonic tools. Some claim he used tripods, pulleys, and chains. Others suggest tuning forks, rods, and cymatic plates. The most credible theory? He used frequency forks and magnetic alignment tools, resonating instruments that steered the stone like a ship caught in an invisible current. This would explain the uncanny alignment of his monoliths, holes drilled through 30-ton blocks that line up perfectly with Polaris, moving hinges carved from single slabs that swing effortlessly, stones locked so tightly you can't fit a razor blade between them. Once a stone was placed, the flywheel was stopped. The harmonics collapsed. The resonance ended. The limestone returned to its rest state. Gravity resumed, and the stone, now impossibly heavy once more, was locked in place forever. There was no trace of effort, just a sense of mystery that still lingers. The gap between science and magic. What Ed did wasn't supernatural. It was hypernatural. A science that predates our textbooks, a fusion of magnetism, geometry, and sacred intent. What modern engineers can't explain isn't the physics. It's the subtle precision, the intelligence behind the field. Because here's the final layer. Ed may not have worked alone. There is a growing theory that Ed himself was the final tuning fork, that the flywheel wasn't complete until his consciousness engaged it. The ancients spoke of levitation through focus, through chant, through alignment of mind, body, and stone. Perhaps the wheel was not just a machine, but an extension of Ed's will, a device that allowed a man of 100 pounds to become a conductor of unseen forces, tuning reality through resonance. The flywheel wasn't designed to move matter. It was built to remind us that matter is already in motion, if you know the song. Long before calculators, before modern science and universities, before the so-called Age of Enlightenment, the ancients encoded reality through number. To them, numbers weren't just tools, they were living symbols, vibrational markers, keys to the hidden language of the universe. And when you step into Coral Castle, you begin to realize something unnerving. Ed Leedskalnin understood that language, perhaps better than anyone in our modern era. His carvings are not chaotic, they're precise. His flywheel isn't a junk sculpture, it's a coded rotor. And the deeper you look, the more you realize. Ed was speaking in prime numbers. He used them everywhere. The number of spokes, the positions of his magnets, the dimensions of certain stones, all point to sequences of primes, particularly prime quadruplets, sets of 4 primes in tight formation, like 5, 7, 11, and 13. These aren't just mathematical oddities. In physics, prime numbers appear in resonance patterns. They relate to quantum fields, wave interference, and constructive harmonics. So why prime numbers? Because they are the building blocks of all numerical systems. They cannot be divided. They are indivisible, like atoms of vibration. Ed wasn't decorating Coral Castle. He was anchoring a frequency into reality. Each prime was a tuning fork, locking into place an aspect of the field. And then there's the sacred trinity, 3, 6, and 9. Ed referenced them cryptically. So did Tesla, who once said, "If you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have the key to the universe." These numbers form a hidden symmetry in the base 10 decimal system. If you trace digital roots, they create a loop of self-referencing perfection. 3 plus 3 equals 6, 6 plus 6 equals 12, and 1 plus 2 equals 3. 9 plus anything equals the same digital root. They are axis points, gateways. Think of 3 as the seed, 6 as the structure, and 9 as the divine amplifier. They are the Trinity encoded into creation, and Coral Castle pulses with these numbers. Look deeper, and you'll find something even more profound. The number 144. At first glance, it seems arbitrary, but 144 is a perfect square, 12 times 12, and it echoes through sacred texts. The Book of Revelation speaks of 144 sealed ones. In esoteric circles, it's seen as the number of ascension, of dimensional alignment. But the physics are just as revealing. In timekeeping, 1,440 minutes make up a day. In light physics, the speed of light in a vacuum equals 144,000 nautical miles per second. Coincidence? Not in Ed's world. 144 shows up in frequency, light, time, and crystalline geometry. It's linked to hexagonal resonance, the structure of quartz, and the geometry of grids laid across the Earth, including ley lines. This number appears in the DNA spiral, in the angles of sacred architecture, and in resonant frequency of harmonic chambers. Ed may have known this. His castle isn't just a marvel of stone. It's a resonance machine, locked to numbers that don't just symbolize harmony, but create it. So what is the message? That math is not man-made, it is discovered. And that prime numbers 3, 6, 9, and 144 are not coincidences. They are the original software of the universe. Ed tapped into it not through equations, but through intuition, through observation, through silent communion with the unseen grid. Perhaps Coral Castle is not just a monument, but a numerical prayer, a code written in limestone for a generation that forgot how to read. But Ed left clues, carved into coral, buried in resonance, waiting to be unlocked, and as we zoom in on his alignments, another piece of the puzzle emerges. an object so simple yet so mysterious that it defies classification. He placed it near his flywheel. He never spoke about it. But it may hold the key to everything. It's time to investigate Ed's black box. Near the center of Coral Castle once stood a strange and haunting device. It balanced atop a stone tripod, suspended like a relic from some forgotten civilization. The black box. Today it's gone. Removed. Disappeared. But its mystery lingers like a ghost in the architecture, taunting those who believe Coral Castle is just a quirky tourist attraction. This box wasn't decorative. It wasn't arbitrary. It was the keystone in Ed's magnetic symphony. Let's break it down. First, why place it on a tripod? Because a tripod is the most stable structure in nature. Ancient surveying tools, celestial instruments, and even mythical devices from Hindu Vimana lore all rest on tripods. The pyramid shape channels energy upward. Ed didn't pick this shape by accident. Now the box itself, crude in appearance, but precise in function. Witnesses described it as metallic, blackened, possibly made of iron. Was it a magnetic conductor? An energy converter? Some believe it acted as a torsion field modulator, interacting with the flywheel and limestone to create an anti-gravity resonance. Some theorists believe the box was a Tesla-style magnetic amplifier, possibly filled with copper coils or magnetic materials. Others claim it was a scalar device, something designed to generate or manipulate standing waves of consciousness and matter. But here's the wildest theory, the one we dare to explore. What if this box responded not just to physics, but to consciousness? We know Ed was deeply private. Some say he meditated for hours, that he worked only at night, not just to avoid heat or prying eyes, but to enter an altered state. What if the black box was a consciousness amplifier, a bridge between intention and matter? Positioned above the flywheel, bathed in electromagnetic resonance, vibrating atop crystalline limestone, anchored to ley lines, aligned with Polaris. It's the perfect energetic circuit. The black box may have been the interface, a cosmic switchboard, one that responds not to buttons but to belief, not to mechanics, but to mental coherence. This might sound extreme, but if Coral Castle proves anything, it's that Ed was operating on a system of knowledge the rest of us can barely grasp. And then, the box vanished. Some say it was stolen. Others say Ed removed it before he died. A few go further, that it was taken by those who understood exactly what it was capable of. Whatever the truth, here's what we're left with. A tripod base that remains, eerily empty, photographs that confirm it once stood. A silence in the narrative, exactly where the crescendo should be. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the black box wasn't meant to survive. Maybe its absence is the final clue. Because now the question isn't just what Ed built, but what we're missing. And it leads us perfectly into the next part, the message he left behind. Coral Castle is not just a question, it's a mirror. It reflects back our disbelief, our skepticism, our wonder. It holds up a blueprint for what's possible when a human soul aligns so completely to a vision that the impossible begins to seem inevitable. When belief, silence, and mastery combine to whisper truths that stone alone should never be able to hold. Ed left no schematics, no confession, no textbook or transcript, but he left something deeper, a blueprint embedded in silence, encoded in magnetism, etched into stone that hums with a knowing presence. His was not a language of words, but of frequency, not of logic, but of resonance. He showed us that intention, when directed with purity and persistence, becomes a force more powerful than we are taught to believe. That alignment, with Earth, with stars, with the stillness within, unlocks a current that reshapes reality. That the mind, when disciplined and devoted, becomes a wand that bends matter not by strength, but by symphony. Maybe Coral Castle is not meant to be solved. Maybe it's meant to be remembered. Not with the intellect, but with the soul. Because this was never about coral or castles or even gravity. It was about a forgotten truth hiding in plain sight. that the world is still soft enough to be shaped by those who dare to shape it. So the final question isn't how Ed moved the stones, but what you might move if you stopped waiting for permission. This wasn't a monument, it was a transmission. He didn't just defy gravity, he defied expectation. And if this message has stirred something in you, something old, something sacred, then don't ignore it. Because Ed didn't just move stones. He moved the edge of what we believe is possible. Coral Castle was never just a structure. It was a message encoded in stone, waiting for the awakened to see it. Ed didn't just bend gravity, he bent belief. And now the blueprint is in your hands. Share in the comments your views and insights on Coral Castle. Subscribe for upcoming videos, and as always, question everything.